My name is Harper Doyle. On the morning I turned 42, I stood at a cemetery gate holding a peach cake in a grocery sack, and a stranger was waiting at my grandmother's headstone with a shovel in his hand. He'd been waiting one way or another for 34 years. What came out of that ground didn't just crack my family down the middle, it brought a person back from the dead, a person my own mom spent 19 years pretending never existed. Stay with me, because by the end you're going to want to hug whoever in your life still remembers the people everyone else forgot. Welcome back to Silent Revenge, where quiet women stop staying quiet. If family secrets coming into the daylight hit something in you, hit subscribe now. My birthday and my visit to Cedar Hollow Memorial Gardens have been the same morning since I was 23. My grandma, Eleanor Whitfield, everybody called her Nell, passed 19 years ago, 3 months before my birthday. I've gone back alone every year since. Nobody in my family has ever once asked to come. That morning, my phone lit up the counter while I frosted a peach jam cake, Grandma's recipe, taped inside her cabinet in pencil. I bake it every year so somebody keeps the oven warm for the people everybody else stopped talking about. The group chat was already awake. My mom, Diane, wrote, "Brunch at 10. Don't be late." Then, family meeting Sunday. Everybody's required. It's about your grandma's plot. Not one person mentioned my birthday. You get tired of watching people do that math and come up short. My old beagle, Gravy, took his spot in the back seat. The drive to Cedar Hollow is 12 minutes, one turn past the feed store. I could do it blind. But that morning, a cemetery truck sat under the oaks near Grandma's row, and a man stood beside it, not working. Watching the gate. Watching, I realized, for me. I parked and walked down the row. The man took his cap off, the way older men do when they're nervous and respectful at once. "Miss Doyle," he said. "Harper," I said. "Do I know you?" "Otis Renfro, ma'am. Keep these grounds. 34 years now." I told him the place always looked beautiful because my mouth had gone dry and I didn't know why yet. "Your grandma knew you'd come here on your 42nd birthday, ma'am," he said. "She paid me in the spring of '92 to dig a hole 3 feet behind her headstone and not touch it till today." The cemetery went dead quiet. "Who told you that?" There was only one grave in that row I'd ever brought cake to. "Eleanor Whitfield," he said, and pulled a card from behind a fishing license, ink gone brown with age, for H. Wait for her 42nd birthday. "She'll come." My knees felt like borrowed furniture. Grandma had written that when I was 6. I made him talk first. Otis told it plain. Spring of 1992, 22 years old, new on the grounds crew, when a widow started coming around while the office finished her double headstone. My grandpa Walter had died that fall. Grandma bought the whole row of 4, paid in full. Office figured the extras were for her kids. She never said otherwise except to Otis, the one she decided had a face that kept things. Cash payment, sealed envelope. 3 feet behind her stone granddaughter's 42nd birthday, not a day sooner. "If the girl doesn't come," she told him, "leave it in the ground." 34 years is a long time to keep a promise, I said. "Only thing anybody ever trusted me with," he said. He walked around behind the headstone, measured off the distance, and cut the first square of sod. Watching a man dig a small hole shouldn't be hard to watch. It was the hardest thing I'd done all year. Foot down, nothing. 2 feet, nothing. My chest was doing stupid, hopeful math I couldn't shut off. Then the shovel knocked. Not a rock sound, a flat, deliberate sound like knuckles on a table. Otis swept the dirt back and a slab of slate appeared, laid flat like a little roof. "She thought of everything," he said. Underneath, wrapped in canvas stiff as bark, sat a steel ammo box. He worked the latch loose, set it in the grass, and stepped back, cap off, because it was never his to open. I knelt in the wet grass in my birthday clothes. Inside was a rusted candy tin, sealed with old wax. My hand shook so hard it rattled. I got a nail through the seal, and my knees quit before my brain caught up. First, a black and white photo, edges gone the color of weak tea. A girl on brick steps holding a newborn wrapped tight in a hospital blanket. My grandmother, maybe 20. I'd gone through every album she ever kept. Never seen this one. Carved in the stone above the door, Sacred Heart. Second, a hospital bracelet, beads spelling baby girl Calder. Calder was Grandma's maiden name, tag reading 7241. Third, a sprig of dried magnolia, brittle as paper. Under it all, a fat envelope sealed with one name, Harper. I sat back doing math my brain wouldn't stop doing. Summer of 1958, my grandmother stood on those steps holding a daughter. My mom wasn't born till 1963, Roy in 1966, so the baby in that blanket was somebody else entirely, a woman who, if alive, would be 67 right now. My grandmother had a first child. A daughter nobody in this family had ever once mentioned. If your family tree ever had a whole branch painted over, tell me in the comments. There's a letter, ma'am, Otis said gently. She'd want you to read it. I read it right there because standing up wasn't on the menu. My Harper. If you're reading this, I've been gone a while and you still came. I had a daughter before your mom. For the 9 days I was allowed to know her, her name was on a bracelet, not chosen by me. It was 1958. I was 19 and unmarried, and a girl like me was a problem to be managed back then. My parents drove me to a home in Savannah, told the neighbors I was helping a sick aunt. I signed papers with the whole family waiting on me to sign, then was driven home and told it never happened. I did as I was told. But I want you to know I did not do it quietly on the inside. She'd looked for her daughter for years, letters, calls, a bus trip north she never explained. Records sealed, doors politely shut. Alone at the bottom of the page, the line I've carried since. I was 42 the year I stopped looking. Don't you stop. That's when my phone buzzed like a hornet in my jacket. My mom, family meeting Sunday. My house, 1 o'clock. It's about your grandma. Be on time. I looked at the open hole in the ground, then the text, and something cold started ringing in the back of my skull. Sunday, my mom's kitchen smelled like scorched coffee, a manila folder centered on the table like a place setting. Diane ran the meeting like her old claims desk, no wasted words. Cedar Hollow's new owners, Bellhaven Properties, wanted to expand the mausoleum wall and were buying back unused plots at a premium, offer expiring September 1st. We own 4 plots, Mom said. Grandma bought the whole row, Lord knows why, 2 are sitting empty for nothing. Her plan, sell the empty 2 and since Bellhaven paid extra for a full row, cremate Grandma and Grandpa too, move them to the new wall, sell all 4. She said cremated the way you'd say refinanced. Roy stared at that folder like it might bite him. Sherry mentioned again that their landscaping trailer's transmission had died. Tanya just watched the folder go around like something dangerous. I said, Mom, she's been in that ground 19 years. She picked that ground. Mom looked at me with patience that's somehow worse than yelling. Honey, the dead don't need anything. The living do. Heads nodded, the slow nod of people being handed permission. I thought of a candy tin in my kitchen and said nothing. Saying nothing is a skill I've been perfecting my whole life. I work night shift in the ICU 14 years now. I sit with people during the part of life everybody else finds a reason to leave the room for. I drove home that week with Grandma's tin riding shotgun because I'd started carrying it around like a library book I was scared to return. That night I read the rest of her letter. Your mom knows none of this, and that is my failure, not hers. Whoever finds this, she would be a grown woman now. If she's alive, she's owed the truth. I called my best friend Jess and told her everything. She was quiet, then said, So your grandma left you a person to find. That was it exactly. Not money. Person. Ever been the only one in your family who still remembers somebody, the recipe, the grave, the birthday nobody else writes down? Drop it in the comments. Here's what I learned that first week. The past has a receptionist and she's very sorry. Sacred Heart closed in 1979. A county records annex now, plaque about the brickwork, nothing about the girls on those steps. George's adoption registry had a real person, Ms. Odom, who kindly explained I had no legal standing. Not the adopted person, not the deceased birth mother, just a granddaughter with a candy tin. If the other party ever registered, she said, a match happens automatic. Only door there is, hon. I hung up in the hospital lot doing what I do best, staying calm outside while my chest caves in. That baby was born in 1958. If she'd reached into the dark, she'd likely done it years back, while a mother was still alive to find. But Grandma had spent 34 years being underestimated by everybody but me. A woman who buries a box under slate doesn't leave her only door shut. I drove back to Cedar Hollow on my next day off. Otis shut the trimmer off soon as he saw my car. She came the first week of June every year, he said. Regular as a tax bill. Not your grandpa's birthday, always start of June. She'd bring 2 flowers, one for Grandpa's side, and a sprig of magnolia that never went on a grave at all, laid instead on the empty grass past her own headstone, like setting a coffee cup at a place nobody was sitting yet. I mowed around that magnolia more Junes than I can count, he said. You don't ask a woman about a thing like that. You just lift it, mow, and set it back. The bracelet said the first week of June, 1958. My grandmother had been keeping a birthday out in the open for over 3 decades, and none of us ever saw it because nobody was really looking at her anymore. My own mom got sent off on a family visit back in '61, Otis added quietly. Came home different. Never spoke of it. Reckon that's part of why I kept this promise so careful. I didn't know what to say to that. I tried my mom carefully, the way you test ice before you put weight on it. Over leftover cake. Did Grandma ever mention a place called Sacred Heart? In Savannah. She didn't turn around. Her shoulders went still over the coffee pot, half a second like a picture buffering. Where'd you hear that name? Not what's that. Straight to the verdict. Your grandma had secrets she chose, she said. Leave them buried. My cousin Tanya called 2 nights later. Gonna sound weird, but Mom got tipsy once and mentioned the sister nobody talks about. I laughed it off. It meant everything. Sherry had known or half known, same as everyone. Tanya became the one person who didn't flinch when I told her the truth. If you've got a cousin like that, tell them today. Uncle Roy's the softest touch in our family, which is why a cedar box of Grandma's keepsakes sat gathering dust in his barn instead of a landfill. Sherry's been after me to pitch it, he said. Come get it first. Inside, a rosary, a christening gown, a church directory with names crossed off. And near the bottom, folded in thirds, a receipt, Georgia Adoption Reunion Registry, fee paid by money order. Registrant, Eleanor C. Whitfield. Dated 2004. 66, 3 years before she died, my grandmother had walked into a government office and put her own name in the dark. Her side of the door had been open since 2004. If her daughter had ever registered too, the match should have happened automatically. Either she never reached or she had and somebody got in the way. Otis called 2 days later. There's a thing you ought to see before your family signs anything, he said, and unrolled the cemetery's old plat map, 4 plots in fading ink. Plot 1, Walter. Plot 2, Nell. Plot 3 and 4, empty. Office figured the extras were for your mom and uncle, he said. But she told me different the day she paid me. Said the 4th one was for the daughter who'd come home. Not if. Who? I've been mowing an empty bed for 34 years. She'd bought a grave for a woman she hadn't seen since 1958, kept it trimmed like a made bed, died still leaving the porch light on, and in weeks my mom would sell that bed to strangers. I need to find her before the 28th, I said. Then you'd best hurry, Otis said. Office already penciled the dig. I'd written the registry after my call with Ms. Odom, asking one narrow question. Was Grandma's 2004 registration still active? The reply came Friday, and I stood at my mailbox reading it twice because the words wouldn't sit still. The registration of Eleanor C. Whitfield, deceased, remains on file. A prospective match inquiry was received October 2007 and administratively closed. Notation: contact declined by family. Grandma died in June. October was 4 months later. After 49 years of leaving a light on, somebody had finally reached into the dark, the very year it emptied out. Contact declined by family. Declined by who? Not Grandma. Somebody living had been asked and said no thank you. The only person a lawyer settling her affairs would have called, the executor, the eldest child, was the same woman across town telling everybody the dead don't need anything. If you think you know where this goes, stay with me, it gets worse before it gets better. I didn't drive straight to my mom's, I went to work because life doesn't schedule around your worst revelations. Tuesday, the cemetery office called. Bellhaven's paperwork cleared review. Disinterment got penciled for the morning of the 28th, 3 days before the offer expired. Grandma and Grandpa had been reduced to a line item between a transmission repair and a deadline. Called Roy, the second signature required. It's a lot of money, Harper, he said, tired. Sherry says they'll be together in the wall same as now. He didn't say it was right. I asked for 2 weeks. Why, he said. What's 2 weeks gonna change? I almost told him then, a bracelet, a magnolia, a bed mode for 34 years. But a thing that size you only get to say once. Family business, I said. The old kind. My mom recruited me for a Saturday boxing up her den. Free labor is what daughters are for. She kept one oak drawer locked, always had. Mid-afternoon, she handed me the key to pull insurance folders while she argued with movers on the phone. I wasn't snooping, I was doing the chore I'd been handed, and there, filed between pension and property, sat a folder in her own printing, Estate, Nell. Inside, a cream envelope hand-addressed to the family of Eleanor Whitfield, postmarked Asheville, October 2007, slid open neat, and clipped behind it, a carbon of a typed reply on my mom's own letterhead. I read the reply first, shorter. My mother never spoke of you. You are mistaken about what you believe you are to this family. There is nothing for you here. Do not write again. No signature to soften it. In the hallway, my mom's slippers whispered toward the den, and I did something I'd never once done. I took what I needed without asking. Envelope and carbon went under my waistband before she walked in. My voice didn't shake once. That scared me more than anything else that summer. I won't give you every line of the Asheville letter because it isn't mine to share. I'll tell you it was dignified. Its writer had lost her adoptive mom the year before, registered where such things get registered, and learned her birth mother's name and date of death the same day. Said, I'm not writing to ask for anything. I would just like to know if she ever spoke of me. Signed, Marion Bertie Ashworth. Grandma's magnolias had been for a girl she'd nicknamed in her own heart, after a bird that never stopped circling back. That week, another patient of mine died 10 minutes before his estranged brother made it to the room. I clocked out at dawn and said out loud to my windshield, "Not one more, Bertie." The next morning I put the envelope and carbon on my mom's kitchen table and sat down without being asked. She looked at the papers a long moment, then did the thing I least expected, sat down too and looked old. You went in my files, she said, heart not in it. Her name is Bertie, I said. Mom, you knew. And my mom, who has never once volunteered a feeling in my hearing, told me about being 9, listening through a floor vent to her parents fighting over a bus trip her own mom had taken, about a name she got slapped once for repeating, about a house where every June her mom disappeared behind her own eyes for a week. You can't compete with a ghost, Harper, she said, flat as a level. Ghosts never disappoint anybody. I spent my whole childhood losing to a baby nobody would even admit existed. For one breath I saw her, 9 years old, at a floor vent. My anger had nowhere good to stand. Then she straightened. I buried her once, she said. I'm burying her again on the 28th. Nobody left to show. She was wrong. I think she knew it before my car cleared her street. By evening, the family had a new update about me. Poor Harper always was intense about Grandma, digging things up at the cemetery, waving old papers around, trying to blow up a decision the family already made. Every true fact rearranged into a lie. The group chat didn't attack me, it just cooled. Only Tanya texted privately, "I believe you. Tell me what you need." Ever gone from the reliable one to the difficult one in a single afternoon? You are not the one making it harder. Finding a retired schoolteacher named Bertie Ashworth in Asheville wasn't detective work, just persistence and a library card. Same house, same name on the parcel. A 5-hour drive and a knock on a stranger's door holding a dead woman's tin. Here's the second thing I'd never once done: I didn't go alone. I called Jess. "I don't think I can do this by myself." She swapped 2 shifts and drove. Past the state line, she asked, "What's the plan if she shuts the door?" "Nobody gets a rehearsal for the most important conversation of their life," I said. "You just show up kind and tell the truth." The house was small, serious about its garden, a white trellis thick with white roses. The woman who answered was tall, straight-backed, my grandmother's exact jawline on her face. "Mrs. Ashworth, I'm Harper Doyle. I believe you wrote my family a letter in 2007 about Eleanor Whitfield." Her face closed, the smooth click of a well-oiled drawer. "That was answered," she said. "I never got to show up anywhere. I got a typed paragraph." She stepped back, then stopped. Pride wanted one more sentence. She came back holding a folded page I recognized before it finished unfolding. My mom's letterhead, creased soft from years of handling, the same way I'd seen paper worn once already this summer, tucked behind a fishing license. 2 people keeping opposite halves of the same wound. "Your family already answered me once," she said. "I'm 67, Miss Doyle. I don't ask twice." The door shut, gentle as a library, which was so much worse than a slam. I sat on her porch step and laid 3 things on the boards where she'd see them through the glass: the photo, the bracelet, the letter marked Harper. Then I talked at the door, the volume I use in rooms with machines beeping. "The woman who typed that paragraph is my mom, and she never told a soul you'd written. Grandma registered with the state in 2004. She died in June, never knowing you'd reached out 4 months later. You missed her by 4 months, but she did not miss you. She kept your birthday every June the rest of her life. I'm an ICU nurse. I sit with people at the end and I'll tell you what they regret. Never the thing they said. Always the thing they ran out of time to say. She didn't run out of time. She buried hers where time couldn't reach it, and it's on your porch right now." Silence. Then the door opened. Bertie stood there, spine perfect, face ruined, looking down at that photograph. "I have been somebody's secret for 67 years, she said, each word placed like a stitch. "I will not stand at that grave as one. If I come in daylight, your whole family told to their faces, or not at all." "Then you'd better come on the 28th, I said, and told her why. We drove home and I went straight to Roy's. No phone call, since tired men can decline a phone call easier than a niece on the porch with a steel box. I told him everything. He held that bracelet like a live wire and reading the beads out loud. "Baby girl called her." His chin went. "I have a sister," he said, not a question. "Mom used to get quiet every June." I thought it was still about Dad. I told him what I'd already decided. On the 28th, I'd be at Cedar Hollow, and so would Bertie in daylight in front of everybody. Then I told my mom the same, plain, no heat in it. She heard me through. Then said the only thing she had left. "If that woman is there on the 28th, you and I are done. To the end of my life. Choose." 28th came up bright and loud with cicadas. When I pulled through the gate at 7:45, machinery was already staged, an excavator idling under the oaks. 2 months earlier, a man had opened this ground with a shovel in his own hands, slow as a prayer. Now a machine yawned over the row. That's the real difference between remembering somebody and just processing them. The director came out with a clipboard, both signatures needed, notarized. My mom's was already in, first in line like she'd been her whole life. Roy's truck rolled in at 5 till, Sherry riding shotgun. Then a sedan none of them recognized came through the gate, Jess at the wheel. My mom's chin came up like a drawbridge. Bertie got out slow and upright, navy dress, my grandma's exact jawline, and looked straight at the double headstone. Roy went white. 60 years of a face is its own paperwork. Sherry's hand went to her mouth. My mom turned only to me. "You still have a choice, Harper," she said, loud enough to be a matter of record. "Send her away or you and I are done. To the end of my life." The cicadas sawed. The excavator idled. Down the hill, Otis shut off a sprinkler, and the quiet after was the loudest sound in the county. I looked at my mom, 9 years old once, losing every June to a ghost. I looked at Bertie, 67, holding her gloves like a hymnal on her first visit to her mother's grave. Everybody I'd ever tried to keep the peace for stood in that one row of grass, and the woman who trusted me to get this right was 3 feet under it. So I chose. "Mom," I said quiet. Deathbed quiet carries farther than shouting. "I love you, and I'm done choosing silence and calling it love." Then I turned so the whole row could hear me and made the introductions in daylight by name. "Roy. Sherry. Mom. This is Marion Ashworth of Asheville. Born the first week of June 1958 at Sacred Heart in Savannah to Nell Calder, 19 and unmarried and given no say." "Your sister," I told Roy. "And yours," I told my mom. Nobody moved. I read Grandma's letter out loud, all of it, and slowed down at her last line. I was 42 the year I stopped looking. "Don't you stop," then put the bracelet in Roy's open palm. He closed his fist around his sister's name and cried the way tough, quiet men cry, silent and furious like a leak he can't locate. "You're doing this to punish me," my mom said, voice cracking clean down the middle. Underneath it, a 9-year-old still waiting to be somebody's favorite. "No, Mom," I said. "You told me the dead don't need anything. You were right. This was never for her. We've needed the truth since 1958, and you've needed it worse than any of us." I turned to the director. "You're still short a signature." Every head turned to Roy. He looked at the bracelet, then Sherry, who looked at the money walking out the gate and put her hand on his arm and let it go. "I'm not signing," Roy said, voice wobbling and holding. "Not today. Not ever." The director clicked his pen shut, said the offer would lapse, and waved off the operator. The excavator coughed once and went silent, the cleanest sound I've ever heard. My mom gathered her purse and walked back down the row, pausing when she drew even with me. "You are your grandmother," she said like a diagnosis. Then she got in her car and the door shut with a soft, expensive click. She kept her promise to the letter. What was left under the oaks was smaller and so much better. Bertie walked the row alone, stood a long while at the headstone, then stepped onto plot 4 in her navy dress, understanding it without a word. She'd spent her whole life being nobody's and knew a kept place the moment she stood in one. "She saved a bed for me," she said. Otis came up quiet, cap off. 34 years, ma'am. Grass never once grew wrong on it." Bertie cried in daylight in front of witnesses, and I dropped to my knees, catching her hand. Bellhaven's offer expired and signed. The Whitfield row stays whole, 4 beds, 2 filled, 2 waiting. Bertie drives down once a month now, 5 hours each way, calls it nothing. Roses for Grandma's side, lately a second one for plot 4. She and Roy talk every Sunday night. Sherry mails her recipes. The trailer got fixed the regular way, a payment plan. My mom and I haven't spoken since that car door clicked shut. I've heard secondhand that at brunch I'm the one who chose a stranger over my own mom. It doesn't burn the way it used to. I finally know the difference between keeping the peace and just keeping the silence. One more thing. Last month, a card showed up at my house, no return address, my mom's handwriting, addressed to Mrs. Marion Ashworth, care of Harper Doyle. I didn't open it. Drove it straight to the post office and sent it north. It's just a crack in a wall. Some walls only ever get a crack. You learn to bless it when it's all you've got. I photocopied Grandma's peach cake recipe off that cabinet door. Copies in 3 kitchens now, mine, Bertie's, and Roy's. Nobody has to be the only one keeping it again. Otis got the last word. That fall, on the family's dime, He set a small granite footstone flush in the grass at plot 4. No date, no name yet, that's Bertie's to decide someday. Just one word, the only word Grandma would have wanted that ground to say, home. Somebody in every family ends up being the one who remembers. What Grandma taught me, 3 feet down in the September grass, is that remembering was never supposed to be something you do alone, in silence, or only for the dead. One rusted tin, a promise kept 34 years, and a 4th bed of grass that finally has somebody's name coming to it. If somebody in your family has been carrying a secret alone, maybe today's the day it sees daylight. Share this with the one person who always remembers. Drop a comment, tell me what you'd have done in my shoes. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you in the next story.